The Glass Slipper, Part 2. As soon as she arrived, the king's son, who had been informed that a great princess whom nobody knew was at the ball, presented himself at the door of her carriage, helped her out, and walked her to the ballroom. Cinderella no sooner appeared than everyone was silent. Both the dancing and the music stopped, and everybody gazed at the uncommon beauty of this unknown stranger. Nothing was heard but whispers of,
"How handsome is she?
Oh my goodness, she's so pretty.
Isn't she most beautiful?"
The king himself, old as he was, could not keep his eyes from her, and continually repeated to the queen that it was a long time since he had seen so lovely a creature. The ladies endeavoured to find out how her clothes were made, that they might get some of the same pattern for themselves by the next day, should they be lucky enough to meet with such handsome materials and such good work people to make them. The king's son escorted Cinderella to the most honourable seat, and soon after took her out to dance with him. She both moved and danced so gracefully that everyone admired her still more than before, and she was thought the most beautiful and accomplished lady they ever beheld. After some time, a delicious meal was served, but the young prince was so busily employed in looking at the mysterious beauty that he did not eat a morsel. Cinderella seated herself near her sisters, paid them 1,000 attentions, and offered them a part of the oranges and sweet treats with which the prince had presented her, while they on their part were quite astonished at these civilities from a lady whom they did not know. As they were conversing together, Cinderella heard the clock strike 11 3/4. She rose from her seat, curtsied to the company, and hastened away as fast as she could. As soon as she got home, she flew to her godmother, and after thanking her 1,000 times, told her she would give the world to be able to go again to the ball the next day, for the king's son had requested that she be there. While she was telling her godmother everything that had happened to her at the ball, the two sisters knocked a loud rat-tat-tat at the door, which Cinderella opened.
"Oh, how late you have stayed,"
said she, yawning, rubbing her eyes and stretching herself as if just awakened out of her sleep, though she had in truth felt no desire for sleep since they left her.
"If you had been at the ball,"
said one of the sisters,
"let me tell you, you would not have been sleepy. There came thither the handsomest, yes, the very handsomest princess ever beheld. She paid us 1,000 attentions, and made us take a part of the oranges and sweet treats the prince had given her."
Cinderella could scarcely contain herself for joy. She asked her sisters the name of this princess, to which they replied that nobody had been able to discover who she was, that the king's son was extremely grieved on that account, and had offered a large reward to any person who could find out where she came from. Cinderella smiled and said,
"Oh, how very beautiful she must be! How fortunate you are! Ah, could I but see her for a single moment! Dear Miss Charlotte, lend me only the yellow gown you wear every day, and let me go to see her." "Oh, sure! Lend my clothes to a servant? Do you really suppose me such a fool? No, no, dear. Mind your proper business, and leave dress and balls to the better sorts, like us."
Cinderella expected some such answer, and was by no means sorry, for she would have been sadly at a loss what to do if her sister had lent her the clothes that she asked for. The next day the two sisters again appeared at the ball, and so did Cinderella, but dressed much more magnificently than the night before. The king's son was continually by her side and said the most obliging things imaginable to her. Cinderella was so delighted being at the ball that she entirely forgot the charge her godmother had given her. Cinderella at last heard the striking of a clock and counted 1, 2, 3, on until she came to 12. She got up and flew as nimbly as a deer out of the ballroom. The prince tried to overtake her, but poor Cinderella's fright made her run the faster. However, in her great hurry, she dropped one of her glass slippers from her foot, which the prince stooped down and picked up, and took the greatest care of it possible. Cinderella got home tired and out of breath in her old clothes, without either coach or footman, and having nothing left of her magnificent but the partner of the glass slipper which she had dropped. In the meanwhile, the prince had inquired of all his guards at the palace gates if they had not seen a magnificent princess pass out, and which way she had gone. The guards had replied that no princess had passed the gates, and that they had not seen a creature but a little ragged girl, who looked more like a beggar than a princess. When the two sisters returned from the ball, Cinderella asked if they had been as much amused as the night before, and if the beautiful princess had been there. They told her she had, but as soon as the clock struck 12, she hurried away from the ballroom, and in the great haste she had made, had dropped one of her glass slippers, which was the prettiest shape that could be, that the king's son had picked it up, and had done nothing but look at it all the rest of the evening, and that everybody believed he was violently in love with the handsome lady to whom it belonged. This was very true, for a few days after, the prince had it proclaimed, by sound of trumpet, that he would marry the lady whose foot should exactly fit the slipper he had found. Accordingly, the prince's messengers took the slipper and carried it first to all the princesses, then to the duchesses, in short, to all the ladies of the court, but without success. They then brought it to the two sisters, who each tried all she could to squeeze her foot into the slipper, but saw at last that this was quite impossible. Cinderella, who was looking at them all the while and knew her slipper, could not help smiling, and ventured to say,
"Pray, sir, let me try to get on the slipper."
The gentleman made her sit down, and putting the slipper to her foot, it instantly slipped in, and he saw that it fitted like wax. The two sisters were amazed to see that the slipper fitted Cinderella, but how much greater was their astonishment when she drew out of her pocket the other slipper and put it on. Just at this moment the fairy entered the room, and touching Cinderella's clothes with her wand, made her all at once appear more magnificently dressed than they had ever seen before. The two sisters immediately perceived that she was the beautiful princess they had seen at the ball. They threw themselves at her feet and asked her forgiveness for the ill treatment she had received from them. Cinderella helped them to rise, and tenderly embracing them, said that she forgave them with all her heart, and begged them to bestow on her their affection. Cinderella was then taken, dressed as she was, to the young prince, who, finding her more beautiful than ever, instantly desired her to accept his hand. The marriage ceremony took place in a few days, and Cinderella, who was as amiable as she was handsome, gave her sisters magnificent apartments in the palace, where they grew to be true sisters indeed, and lived happily ever after.